quarterback this year that, remember that quarterback that had the mustache?
Oh, Gardner Minshew.
Minshew, there you go.
You got a little more girth than Minshew had on that baby though.
I'm going for the full ladder tombstone.
There you go.
Yeah, that's going too.
The bathrooms are out of commission too, so if you need to use the bathroom, you'll have to use one in the office. They started taking those out today.
Saw stuff in the hallway there.
You got after it a little bit today.
Looks a little strange not having bleachers.
You're the tech guy today?
He's the DJ.
Making sure that the volume's on for the tech guy, so he doesn't have to come all the way back.
Well, that's nice of you.
I didn't know you were officially done.
Boy, you're really coming in. Are you going for the handlebar thing?
I actually can go with the ladder from Tombstone, not
What?
from
You do, yeah, that's right. It makes me look great though.
the Kurt Russell ladder.
You gotta
Just
get a
for the
little
record.
salt and pepper in there. I think. How far apart do we need to be?
You gotta use the bathrooms in the office, they're out of commission today.
So you have
Yeah.
that, but we don't get that.
Dude, there's a machine in the.
BYOP, Corey.
BYOP?
BYOP.
Oh.
Is this planned or?
Oh, that's like, I was like, hey,
Did you
my
guys
wife,
get the memo?
my wife hates mustaches. I'm definitely getting one.
I just gave myself a haircut before I just the one that's in yellow that I emailed you about, and that was, we have to canvass the votes from the election, so nothing real major.
Then we need a motion to approve amendments to the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Slade, second by Corey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Conflict of interest disclosures?
None that have been presented to me.
Okay. Public input? I'm assuming nothing. Okay, and then we need a motion to approve the following. Minutes of the regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting of May 11th, 2020. Minutes of the Corn Belt Education Cooperative Board of Directors meeting on May 12th, 2020. Financial report and claims. Motion by Corey,
Second.
second by Mark. All those in favor?
Aye.
And some in person. And then we just got notified today, literally late this afternoon, that our sped department got put on a level 2. I've never even heard of this. It's almost, it's like school improvement for our sped because of some scores of I'm at risk, our kids are at risk. And I'm not even in total understanding because we literally just got it. I opened the email and was trying to get a grasp of it, but I looked at the process that they're going to make our sped department do, and it's very similar to what they made our colonies do when they were in school improvement. So I'll know more about it next month after I have time to read the document. So that's basically all I have. Interesting, we had one of our colony students, one of my former colony students, I think he's 18 years old, had left the colony and been working for a water tower company, fell 125 feet from the water tower and lived. I guess he opened his eyes last week, so Wolf Creek boy fell 125 feet. It was on the news in Illinois. He's working for a company out in Sioux Falls. Not many people fall that far in order to tell about it. Right.
All right, well, thank you then, Shane. Any questions for Shane? Thanks, Shane. Will?
I don't have a whole lot either. One thing that we did do this year that, when I first got here, we did some of the scheduling stuff way in August. We've actually kind of got a lot of the schedule done, a lot of kids registered for classes, so that when August comes, hopefully, we're worry about COVID stuff and not necessarily worry about getting kids signed up for classes and figuring all that stuff out. We're kind of ready to go, so if we have to go online learning, we're kind of ready for that immediately. So otherwise, I don't have a whole lot.
Kevin?
I actually don't have a ton for you either. Most of the stuff is either kind of on the agenda already as discussion items, or I've kind of emailed out to everybody that I'm really trying to keep everybody in the loop. But obviously that letter went out to parents the end of last week, and that was more or less just to kind of give everybody a heads up of what we're thinking. Obviously the goal that we have right now is to start as usual and try to move forward as best we can without having too many interruptions or anything to what the plan will be in the fall. But unfortunately, with where we're at right now, we don't really know what it's going to look like as far as the situation amongst the community and throughout the state at that point in time. So we're just trying to stay open-minded, and we'll adjust as needed, but hopefully things will be relatively smooth. We started putting together a couple different committees, one for elementary and one for the middle school, high school, just so we could kind of bring some more people to the table and start having some conversations about the fall, more or less. Not necessarily that we feel like we're going to have to do a whole lot different right away, at least based on what we know right now, but just kind of planning for different scenarios that could maybe pop up throughout the year. I think, at least right now, it seems like that's kind of more the direction we're headed with those committees, is think about what could happen, not necessarily that we're going to have to do a ton different right off the bat. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Obviously, the state, I emailed you guys the other day, released their Start Well 2020 plan. Compared to other states, there's not a ton that's in that right now. It's supposedly supposed to be a working document, so we're going to add to it as they go. So we'll kind of wait and see if we get a little more substance to what they have right there. But kind of along those lines, the Department of Ed is going to try to develop a work group in conjunction with the Department of Health. I guess one of the concerns out there right now, and I don't know how many of you have looked at some of the recommendations put out by the CDC, is the CDC is kind of trying to lump everybody across the entire United States into the same category, and they're trying to make guidelines that apply to everybody. And if you've looked at the ones for schools, I just think there's a lot of stuff in there that's not really going to be feasible for us, and probably doesn't necessarily apply to us based on our location. So we're hoping, and this is kind of when I say we, from kind of our superintendent's group across the state, we're hoping that the Department of Health is going to be able to kind of help us out a little bit more as far as trying to shape things that maybe apply more to our state than the nation as a whole. So hopefully they're able to kind of get together and come up with some more specific things that we can take a look at as we kind of plan for the fall. The superintendent's group, the state superintendent group, has kind of put in a request to the governor's office about PPE, or personal protective equipment, and not necessarily saying that everybody absolutely has to get it, but what they're trying to do is maybe find a central point of purchasing. If your school is going to use that as part of their plan, that everybody's kind of not fending for themselves, and they can give a little guidance as far as where everybody can go to get that. So hopefully we make a little more ground on that here in the weeks to come. There are a couple of grants available, one of which that we just kind of automatically get some money based on our enrollment and based on, it has to do with how much title money we get. We're going to be allocated about $79,000 for that particular grant. That comes from the CARES Act and some of that stuff that I kind of touched on a little bit in the last couple of meetings. And just keep in mind of that $79,000, we do have to share about $16,000 of that with the academy, just because of the rules that they have and how the districts work and all that stuff. So they also get a little piece of that. So, we'd be looking at, right around 63 or something to kind of use for, we're hoping to use that kind of more for like one-time purchases, whether it's tech equipment or some of the other stuff, so we don't have to rely on that for recurring expenses and things like that. There's another grant too, these are called GEER grants, GEER. Those you actually have to apply for, but I think we'll probably put something together and see if we can get a little extra, money on the deal as far as that's goes. So, other than that, summer projects, so you can see they kind of started taking some of the fixtures out and got to work on the bathrooms today. So hopefully we'll kind of see how that goes and monitor that. Obviously the gym floor is done. They tore the bleachers out that last week of May. So there's nothing in there. It sounds like the end of next week, the new bleachers should be coming in. So they'll either start installing those like next Friday, or they'll wait till the following Monday. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. I'm not 100% sure what the length of that process looks like. When they came to tear the old ones out, they were here for a day. They got all those redone. So I would assume installation takes a little bit longer than that. So the only other thing, that survey that we put out as far as trying to get some input from people based on their thoughts of what we did when the building was closed. I think we had about 23 people respond to that, so it wasn't a real high number. But we did get some pretty good information that came back from that, and we're going to kind of use that to drive some of our summer professional development stuff for staff. We're going to start some of that next Monday, go Monday through Thursday, and we're kind of splitting into groups. But we're going to talk about some different things as far as if we end up in a remote learning situation or something like that, how we can kind of do a better job than what we did last spring, because now we have a little bit more time to prepare for what we have going on there. So that's what I have in my report now.
Question? Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the canvas of votes. So I suppose we need a canvas of votes first, huh?
what it says.
All right. Then I guess we need a motion to approve the canvassing. The votes for the school board election held on Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Will require a motion to approve an application for a waiver from the administrative rule of South Dakota 2443-1101. Number of required credits for graduation from high school. Approval of this waiver allows the district to offer high school credit for eligible one prior to ninth grade.
So basically what these are is they're 5-year waivers. We were currently under one and it expires on June 30th. So if we want to basically leave that as an option for something that we can do, basically as 8th graders taking out for one, we just need to renew the application to waive that administrative rule. And all that stuff comes down to when they do the state accreditation process and all that, you have to abide by certain administrative rules. So we're just saying that we're going to basically just get rid of one of the rules so that we can offer algebra 1 to 8th graders. And then the next one is pretty much the same thing. The next one just says that in conjunction with, offering it in 8th grade, we will administer some type of credit equivalency test at the end, and then pass the test and we get credit for algebra 1 to 8th graders. So those two kind of work together.
So move on the first one.
Second.
Motion by Corey, second by Carrie.
I just have one question. Do we currently offer algebra 1 in 8th grade?
Well, we have. It's been a couple of years since we've done it, but our hope is that maybe not necessarily this year, but next year would be the year where, because we're doing some different things with 7th grade math this year to try to hopefully get some more kids on a more accelerated path. So next year would be the year where it would really come into play.
Do a lot of districts offer that or not?
It's kind of hit or miss depending on where you go.
'Cause I think that'd be good to kind of push them.
I'm trying to think, the last class that did it would be the kids that are now, there's a couple of girls in the junior class going to be seniors.
Okay.
And then there are obviously some seniors that graduated this year that have done it, but for the last couple of years we haven't.
Some other schools get around that too by, they take 2 math classes when they're sophomores or juniors, and geometry and open at the same time. It's kind of another way around that.
Yeah, no, it'd be nice to spread it out a little more, because I know some other districts do it. I just hadn't heard that from somebody, and I wasn't even aware of that.
I think with the way we're set up now, we're set up a little better to be able to do that, so.
Is the theory that when they get to the place where they take their ACT, they're probably a little more prepared?
Well, there's that, and then there's also, they just kind of get everything a year earlier, so by the time they're juniors, they can do, essentially can do some type of college algebra, or like the trigonometry pre-calc class that we offer, and then if they, are even more accelerated calculus for their seniors, so, or something to that effect. So yeah, that kind of puts them on a path to be able to kind of get some stuff knocked out before they actually graduate.
Yeah, thanks for answering.
So then we need to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and then a motion to approve the application and waiver for the administrative rule of South Dakota 2443-0101. The approval of this waiver allows the district to offer high school credit for eligible one through an equivalency exam.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Corey, second by Slate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then, okay. And then it looks like we're gonna declare some stuff surplus.
Did you have a list, Debbie?
Maybe I can get these copies of it.
You're gonna read it off?
It's math, yeah.
29 advanced math books, one advanced math book, $45. I think that was probably the original price, is that what we're talking about? Yeah. 50 math textbooks for $2,500 in 2010. One algebra book, 28 algebra 2 books, 4 algebra 2 books, 1 algebra 2 is just different files. And when they were purchased, they were about $6,000 and some change. You might want to see this. Just old textbooks from 2010 or 12 or older.
So typically when we declare stuff surplus, more times than not, we just say that we're pretty much saying it's of no value anymore. And we just, if somebody wants to come get it, they come get it. There are some cases when it comes to like tech supplies and some of that stuff where we could essentially get it appraised and then, sell it for something, but that, I guess, probably make an argument either way after what we want to do or not. But we did have something else too, and that doesn't necessarily apply to this. We do have a bus that does not run. And basically they were telling us out of specialty, and it's not on this list, so it doesn't have to be included. That it's not worth repairing. But that's probably not something that we need to want to declare a surplus and then just give it away to somebody. So I think the best way, I made some calls, the best way to handle that is to have somebody come in and just appraise it. And then you declare it a surplus, but then, put in the paper like it's, we're asking for X number of dollars.
Silent auction type deal or whatever.
Yeah, and essentially.
We do have an offer for it too.
Right. So at least as long as we have the appraisal there, we don't get into any trouble as far as just giving something away that I can ask for either. So we'll probably try to do that and maybe have that ready to go in either July or August, so we can just kind of unload that thing. Because I think it's going to be several $1,000s worth of
There
to
was
fix it.
something that if you fix, then something else could go wrong.
We still have spares, right? It's not
Yes.
like, yeah,
It was a snare.
it was a spare, yeah. Well, I'll make a motion on this surplus. Is that
Okay.
what it is?
Second.
Motion by Carrie, second by Corey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, first reading of policy IGDK and IDKE pertaining to participation of alternative instruction students in co-curricular extracurricular activities.
I did print these off for everybody so you can take a look at it. So, Mark had sent an email, I think it was to the whole board at one point with kind of what came back from that committee meeting to talk about some of the stuff. So I just forwarded that email directly to the attorney and then we kind of had a phone conversation and he just moved forward with kind of putting something together based on the statutes and some different things. One of the things I know, and Mark had called me this morning, we talked about this a little bit. I know we had some stuff in there about, grading and checking different things. And basically what the attorney had kind of told me on that whole deal is he doesn't really like to kind of make different rules for one group compared to the other group. So he said, whatever your rules or policy is for grade checking and stuff like that, you should probably just make that the same for whatever the other kids are. So if you check grades for everybody here in the building, at midterm or whatever it happens to be, and he said, I would just do that same thing for if there's homeschool kids that want to participate. Now that doesn't mean you can't ask them to provide some other type of proof to go with it, but he said that's probably your best bet as far as checking on that. Then you don't have it set up so it looks like it's one group against the other group or something like that. So And then the second sheet, so the first one is the policy that you wrote. The second one is actually just the one that says -E on it. That form actually comes directly from the Activities Association. That's just something that if you have a student, and grade doesn't really matter, but if you have a student that's going to participate in an actual South Dakota Activities Association event, they would have to fill that out for the Activities Association anyway. So we just include it as part of the policy that goes along with that. So that's not anything that's just pulled out of there or something, that's just, where that comes from, so.
And maybe we did, and I'm just not remembering. Did we vote on doing this, or is that we're gonna do this and then?
So basically what we'll do is we'll go through and, so like when we did our committee meeting, we basically said, we're gonna get to the point where we're just gonna come up with something that we
Right.
think everybody agrees on. We'll do the readings, and then, so next month,
Okay.
there would be an actual vote. So one way or the other, we're gonna, we're gonna do it, or we're not gonna do it, or, if you see anything in there that you want me to talk to the attorney about modifying, or if it looks okay, or, whatever you think
Okay, thank you.
on that end. I guess the two of you are kind of in on the community. Is there anything on that really jumps out at you as not kind of what we had discussed?
No, I think it's in there, the lawyer makes it in their own way of doing things, but I think it's all pretty much what the community had kind of directed us to go with, so.
Yeah, because weren't basically the main stuff coming out of that was kind of like, we didn't want to put a class requirement on it, or like a number of course requirement of periods.
Right.
And we just wanted to make sure that there was some way to check.
Definite
Like
guideline, or
grades or
that's
something like
those
that.
certain circumstances like that. Yeah.
Okay, and we don't need to make anything on that, right?
No, so no motions, it would just be if you want, if there's anything that's in there that you think that shouldn't be in there, or you'd like to see changed or anything like that.
Okay. Then, summer driver's ed program.
Sure, so I did put out that survey, to see how many, like if we were to offer something, how many people would be interested. We had 18 responses, 17 people said that they would be interested in sending a kid if we offered the program. So I talked to Tyler Euchre, who's usually been our driver's ed instructor, and we kind of talked through a couple different things on, how we would do it and what it would look like. Originally we were talking about maybe doing the classroom portion remotely, but then we said, I think we could probably utilize the gym and keep everybody spaced out to the point. So he was fine with that, if you guys are okay with that and moving forward. And then the driving part, we have got some waivers and some different things from different entities in the state that we could have the kids sign, as far as if we were riding in the vehicle and some of that stuff. So Tyler pretty much said he was okay with all of that stuff if you guys were okay with moving forward with the program. So I guess basically it's kind of, are you okay with it? And then if you are, I have a signed contract from him to do that, and then we can get registration forms and everything else out.
Do you want a consensus or
I guess we-
motion or what?
I mean, you could.
Contract, that'd be the consensus.
Right. I mean, you can do it either way. You could just make a motion to, we're gonna hold this summer, driver's ed program and do this contract too, then there's not a whole lot of doubt left about anything.
Okay.
It's fine.
I agree. So do we need, if we just approve this contract, that's good, or do we need to make?
No, that's fine. We can just say consensus to go ahead and go with it, and then
Okay.
approve this contract, that's fine.
Okay, so then we need a motion to approve the contract with Tyler Euchre as driver education instructor.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Carrie, second by Corey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, reopening the school facilities to the public gymnasium.
So, obviously, we've started rolling with the summer contact stuff as far as like organized stuff, which so far so good. I think the kids are kind of getting used to the screening process and how some of that stuff works, so we haven't had any issues. I know like open gyms and stuff are gonna get rolling. I know like volleyball tonight. So, like I said, so far so good. I guess I haven't heard anything directly, but I'm assuming there's people wondering about when they're gonna be able to get back into the gym and some of that stuff, so that's kind of why I brought it up. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that. I did, one of the things that I kind of talked with the attorney about was just, if we are gonna reopen, obviously we have our rules as far as like what they're supposed to do, or we did before all this happened. You know, he recommended that there'd probably have to be another element added to that as far as the potential liability that could be there as far as all this other stuff that's going on. And like I told you guys, you know, the waiver is helpful. There's still gonna probably have to be other guidelines and stuff in place for what you're gonna expect people to do when they actually come in, if, you know, you decide you wanna do that. So, and I would guess those would probably be similar to what we're kind of asking of the kids right now, and some of that stuff. So, I guess that's really all that I have on that. So it's kind of up to you what your thoughts are on that. I will tell you, you know, as far as this gym goes and some of that stuff, we're doing that tech training with the staff, and they're all next week, so we're gonna have a bunch of stuff set up in there, and then the bleachers will come after that. So that gym itself is probably gonna be on a commission for a couple of weeks. The elementary gym is up and running, and that's good to go. Those guys that we had talked to about putting in some of that added security stuff in the other gym, they've started on that last week. They're not done. They've been kind of having a heck of a time getting parts because of everything that's been going on, but they're in the process of getting that rolling. And I think what Seth and I had talked about was, once we get that going, we're probably going to think about like badging the kids during the year so they have their own personal badge, which they can swipe to get into the gym and all that stuff at some point in time. So we're moving on that. That hasn't been as smooth as I would have liked it to be, just because of, like I said, they're mostly having trouble getting parts and all that stuff. So, but that's kind of another conversation for further on down the road. But I guess the main thing is what are your thoughts on, you know, reopening the gym or reopening the way or whatever to more than just, I guess more than just organized activities, you know, as far as whether it's parents bringing kids in or, you know, members of the community coming in or whatever that would happen.
I guess personally, I would be okay with doing that. At some point, I do think we have to kind of let normal-ish, whatever that is, thing. So if, you know, and I know there's more stuff coming out all the time, but like you look at the cases and stuff, like it's really not even spreading that fast. People are out, like the pool is open, and kids are in contact anyway. You know, like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not gonna play basketball in the gym, they're gonna play in their driveway. They're still sweating and breathing all over each other. It's an exercise in futility to keep it closed and pretend that by doing this, we'd be putting a dent in anything. Might as well just open it up. If you wanna sign a waiver, great. If not, just as good.
I mean, honestly, I guess I don't care one way or the other, and I kind of told you in an email, I guess I just didn't want to be the one prior to this making the decision, because, you know, the only thing I mean, gym, yeah, I get a little nervous about the weight room, just because of, you know, like I've opened it in the morning a few times, and some of the stuff you have to go through to remind kids as far as staying away from each other, but also making sure that they're clean and everything after they're done. And like I said, that's part of the stuff, is you're probably gonna have to put some type of guidelines out there.
Do we have anything up there for people to clean it if they're using it from the community?
Yeah, I mean, we have spray bottles with stuff up there. I mean, that's what we've been using in the morning.
I'd say, yeah, if you just have everybody that has key fob or whatever come in and sign a waiver and read to them the waiver that, hey, here's the waiver, make sure you clean it when you're done. And, you know, you're using this at your own risk. If you get sick, I'd say that'd be, you know, and also say there may be, you know, cases rise, we reserve the right to just shut it down at any time too. So that way, if anything comes up, we can just pull the plug and be done with it for a while, see what happens. That's what my preference would be.
I do think that I've heard or read that it's harder to spread it through contact than I think they thought it was originally. So like, that makes me less worried if somebody isn't super great about cleaning it.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have the symptoms like they say, it's pretty actually hard. Not hard, but harder to spread.
So if you're asymptomatic,
Right,
it's
right.
less easy to spread it than if you're symptomatic. So if somebody's clearly showing signs that they're sick,
Yeah.
obviously they shouldn't be allowed to participate in open gym or events or something like that. I guess I would chalk that up under the common sense category. But obviously not everybody's gonna abide by that.
Right.
So if we do need to step in and say, hey, you're not allowed to be in here, that's perfectly fine. Obviously we need to use some common sense caution. As far as basketballs, maybe just have everybody bring their own basketball as opposed to having community basketballs. That way we don't have to worry about wiping them down every night and, this or that or the other thing. If you're gonna play basketball, bring your own basketball. That way it's not sitting and passing through 20 different people's hands throughout the course of the day. That'd probably be the only logical step with that.
So are we okay? Is that everybody kind of agree on that? We'll move forward with it. We'll probably have them just sign the waiver and then just say that we'll have a couple other guidelines posted as far as how we should do it. I mean, the original sheet that they form or sign when they get their bond or whatnot, or thing on their phone, pretty much says that, I agree to comply with all policies and rules. Well, whatever we put up would be the policy or the rules. Sure. I mean, it's not like you have to completely have them sign something else, but.
That's fine.
Okay.
The thing too, like somebody said previously, if things do change, we have that option to flip the switch, and just shut it right down. We don't need to wait till things get, out of hand before, well, maybe we should close, maybe we shouldn't. As soon as it starts to, show signs of rearing its ugly head here, just shut it down. If that were to happen.
The only other question I would have is, obviously, weekends, I think we had it set up for like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or something on like Saturday and Sunday. During the week, is it all right if we wait till like 4 or 5? Open just so the other people that are here are not in the building, and everybody else will be coming in and out. So I was like having it open from 3 or 4 in the afternoon till 10 at night during the week.
I don't think they're really in contact with people at the gym anyway.
Well, I mean, we got custodians and stuff wandering around working and stuff like that. I mean, I guess it would make me feel a little bit better. Rather than having it be open all day long.
Break it up a bit.
I think if it's open, it should just be open, but I understand there's a couple of custodians around, but that's my own preference, because usually from about 4 to 10, I have something every day, so probably not gonna make it anyway.
I kind of agree.
But I mean, I'm not saying it has to be open all day, but that's just my 2 cents. Whatever that's worth.
Well, I'll look and see what the there's a lot of times with the mornings are pretty.
Yeah, and if the mornings are full, I don't know what the schedule will look like, maybe if it doesn't work, I'm just
Okay.
spitballing.
All right, well, we'll get that figured out. We'll get that posted too, so everybody knows what the options are.
Open as much as possible, please.
All right, the alternative calendar options.
So I sent you a bunch. I guess I don't know that we really need to change anything as of right now, but I thought about this stuff a little bit more, and I kind of made, the more I thought about it, the more I thought that like an actual, just straight 4-day week would probably make the most sense if we were going to do something different, just because I think it gives you the most flexibility as far as having days built in, like extra Fridays, like you say. So start a week early. You have a few extra Fridays in there that if you do end up for some reason having to close, some of that's going to depend on what protocol will be if you end up with positive cases and some of that stuff. But if you do end up having to close and take like a day off to clean or whatever it happens to be, you don't have to automatically jump right into remote stuff right away. You give yourself a little cushion there before you have to do that. So like I said, I don't know how much of an issue, like say we want to wait and you want to sleep on this and think about it for a while and we wait till July. I guess I don't know how much of an issue it would be for people if we wait till July and then say like, oh, it's looking like we're going to start a week earlier, if that causes problems for people, or if, you know, it'd be more problematic if we were actually going in the direction starting later. I don't know what your thoughts are on that either. Or if you want to just say that you want to do this instead, I don't know what your thoughts are. Like I said, if we wait till July, and, then we would obviously have like 3 or 4 more weeks under our belt to see like, okay, what is it looking like and some of that stuff. And then we decide, okay, well, we're gonna do this instead and we're gonna start a week earlier. Is that gonna cause a lot of problems for people? Or if we're gonna do something, we'd be better off doing it tonight so people have, more time to prepare for, I guess, what this could be.
So would that be where a 5-day to a 4-day wouldn't be that big of a switch? Where if all of a sudden we're with our regular 5-day schedule and it seems like things are spreading, and then all of a sudden we would switch to a 4-day so we have more time for cleanup and whatever else, then it's just a longer day for 4 days, then it really wouldn't change that much, or would you have to totally change schedules altogether?
Well, you could probably do that. It gets a little complicated though, because like right now we're scheduled to start the 19th. If you start the 19th and you go with the current calendar we have, and then all of a sudden in between you decide, oh, we're going to switch to a 4-day week, it causes some problems because then you're going to end up getting lopsided on your first semester, where your first semester is only going to end up being like 80 days, and your second semester is going to end up being like 90 some days, so you're going to get off there. So like if you wait to do that, there's the possibility that maybe we would end up having to extend the first semester until after Christmas.
Okay.
So, if we're gonna do something, I think we probably should just decide at some point, like I said, it doesn't have to be tonight, but one way or the other, whether we just wanna stick with what we have and try to make that work, or if we wanna try to build in a little bit more flexibility with something like this. And unfortunately, it's kind of like flipping a coin right now because you don't really know.
So what's the big advantage of going to this schedule, just that we start a little sooner?
So you start a little bit sooner.
If we have some things under our belt before it escalated?
So you'd start a little bit sooner, you'd have more days built in, like essentially days built in that you're gonna take off, that are just off days. It's like you're not taking it off because it's a holiday, you're not taking it off for another, you're just taking it off, so you strictly stick to 4 days per week. I guess the other theory would be you're gonna have at least 72 hours over the weekend where the building's not gonna have people in it. That's kind of one of the numbers that the Department of Health and the CDC have been throwing around as far as, like if you do end up with a positive case or something like that, they're recommending that you close for, 72 hours to kind of let everything run its course, I guess. So I guess that was the theory behind that. Right or wrong.
Essentially, every week we would have our 72-hour classrooms would be idle.
Without it having to make me nervous, we just naturally have that built in, right?
It's a lot of coughing, man.
And if there's a holiday on a Monday, then you just,
For the most part, the only Monday holiday that we would take then would be Labor Day.
okay.
And then the second semester would be Easter Monday. Otherwise, you would just, like, if you typically take Monday off for, like, Native American Day or something, you go that day and then you bump it to Friday instead. So.
Makes sense, but nobody else changed. And it does feel late, like, from an aspect, I'm not sure if it's any different if it's this month or next month, because some people probably have plans over that week, no matter what.
And I guess in the letter that I sent out, I did say that
Yeah.
we were discussing alternate, calendar options. So, we could easily just, sit on it for now. We could post this one too and say this will be an option that will be considered, so you should just
I think that'd be a good.
tentatively prepare for the fact that we could maybe do that.
I think that'd be nice to get some feedback from people too.
So, I mean, is everybody okay with not, I mean, we don't have to jump into it, but just kind of say like, this would, I mean, I guess my other question would be then is, was there any of those other, I mean, some of those other ones were kind of, they were out there a little bit.
Yeah.
We were really,
I was stretching a little bit.
so.
It's creative.
But, well, yeah, we'll use the word creative. So, I mean, I guess, like I said, the more I thought about it, the more I thought this one probably made the most sense.
Does the school day get longer or adding those weeks in?
You know, not, you might have to add a little bit of time on the front and the back just to make sure you can meet requirements, but it wouldn't be a whole lot.
Kevin, I assume this is going to be a discussion item on our committee meeting next week?
Yeah, we probably have that on there. If we don't discuss it, or decide.
I think the thing we need to figure out is who we're trying to protect, who's the vulnerable. Because it seems like, to correct me if I'm wrong, but the kids don't get COVID as much as the adults or the ones that have poor health. And so I don't know if we're focusing more on the staff, or maybe there's certain kids that maybe that would have certain health conditions. And I think that might help us to identify how to build a calendar if we're trying to figure out who we need to protect. And so with your conversations with the state and the hospital and that kind of thing, who would you say that we really need to look out for when school starts?
Well, I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard them talk about high risk, you know. So the thing I think that confuses people a little bit is that it's not that kids aren't going to get it, but more times than not, when they do get it, they just don't show symptoms. So kind of like what you were talking about, they're asymptomatic, and there is a little bit of research to suggest that, you know, the ones that are asymptomatic, so they're not going to spread it as much as the other ones will. But, you know, a lot of the research they've done doesn't include school scenarios because schools weren't really in session when most of the stuff was going on, so there's still a lot of that out there. But, you know, the thing is, kids are going to get it, and a lot of them you're probably not going to know that they actually have it because they're just going to carry on like usual. But the kids that you do need to be a little bit more worried about would be, you know, your ones with your asthma, your heart condition, diabetes, different things like that. That would be a little bit higher risk. But, you know, we also don't want to be in a situation where we want to make sure that we're protecting families, you know, at home just as much as, you know, because you're right, staff is going to be kind of a big one here.
Okay.
Because obviously them just being older puts them at a little more risk than kids would be. And we do have some staff that have some of those health conditions that, you know, I just kind of brought up there a little bit. But, you know, you certainly don't want to end up in a situation where you get a bunch of kids that are running home, bringing it home to mom and dad, are going to explain some of that stuff too. So, you know, some of it's just going to be, you know, as tough as it is to say, you're not going to be able to avoid all of it just because you can put in every precaution under the sun, and it's probably not going to matter. But, you know, we can still do our part to do a little bit to try to, you know, help, particularly with those, like you're saying, the ones that are a little more high risk.
So the question I have is, so let's say there's a child that comes into a classroom, he's or she is coughing and hacking and spitting, and is that going to be up to the teacher to say, well, wait a minute here, this kid doesn't belong in school, we need to call your parents, we don't.
They usually send them to me.
Need to have this.
We're gonna screen.
Well, we're probably going to end up having to screen in some way, shape, or form when they get to the building.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, well, and we've noticed this too, like when you're upstairs in the weight room or like when you're having open gym and stuff, you can screen kids till the cows come home. Or, you know, most of them aren't going to show a whole lot as far as, you know, temperature or coughing, sore throat, you know, all that fun stuff. But yes, we'll have to have something in place as far as, you know, training staff on what symptoms look like and making sure that if something comes up that, yeah, we're going to have to send them and we're going to have to make sure that we, you know, address that right away.
Okay.
In the event of, like, we do have a kid that we have to send home or whatever, do we have, and maybe I just missed it or whatever, but are we gonna have the ability to like get them a computer so that like we could have a classroom that they would still be able to have actually be in the actual class while they're at home and not fall?
So that's some of the stuff that we're gonna start discussing with staff next week, but, based on what we've kind of budgeted as far as our tech stuff goes, we're gonna make sure that we have a device available to each kid if they need it to take home. So,
Because yeah, it would be nice. I mean, it would be nice if we had to send a kid home if they were still able to. You know, because like I just like this spring, like the hardest part is like for us anyway. Like not that we, like I told my daughter, I said, you know, it's not that like Becky was, you know, a teacher. Like she's obviously better at teaching, but like she also knows how to deal with 9-year-olds. And so like for me trying to deal with a 9-year-old trying to teach them, like that was really hard. So like if I would have been able to say, hey, we're able to have an online class and you're viewing Mrs. Kuntz going over something, you know, like, because she explains it way better than I mean, there were times we would spend, and like, her grades are really good, but like, we'd spend 2 hours on one problem. And like, so like, obviously I don't know how to do it as well. So like, it would be nice if we were able to have the ability for that kid to still be in the classroom while not being in the classroom.
and that's, like I said, that's some of the stuff, particularly with that. So next week with some of this training I was talking about, we kind of have it split up into 2 different sessions. So Monday, Tuesday is going to be the elementary, and then Wednesday, Thursday is going to be the high school. And obviously the scope of each of those is going to be a little bit different, because elementary, it's going to be more, you know, they didn't really do, I mean, there were teachers here and there that did kind of some stuff online, you know, here or there, depending on, and it wasn't a ton, but, you know, that was kind of based on trying to throw everything together, you know, in
Right.
a week period of time. But yes, that's some of the stuff that we want to address with them, is how can we get some of this stuff across or make it easier for kids when they maybe aren't able to come to school on some of this stuff.
Or even for a family that says, you know, grandpa's whatever, and so we're just not comfortable sending you to school, so that kid would still be able to participate with his classmates and, or he or she, and still get teaching from a teacher. And if we could do that, I think that.
Well, I think there's a realistic possibility that you're going to have some of that too.
Right.
You know, parents that, you know, maybe don't feel comfortable sending their kid to school based on whatever their situation at home is.
Right.
So makes attendance policies kind of interesting.
Right,
But,
right.
I mean, it just kind of is what it is, and you just gotta try to address the best you can. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that we're hoping to get knocked out this summer, so we have a good idea how we can handle that when kids start. So just sit on this for now, maybe get it out there so people have a chance to see what it could maybe be, and then we'll kind of address it as we move forward.
Okay, I think that's fine. All right, additional teaching assignment responsibilities.
So as Will kind of touched on a little bit, we went through the registration process a little bit. And we had a couple things kind of pop up that we did not foresee. One of them would be, and basically I guess what I'm asking you is we have a couple teachers that are not full-time that I'd like to add a little bit of FTE to their particular contract, so we get a couple things covered. So one would be Lois Woolman. We need her to pick up a couple things as far as some English stuff is concerned. So I'd like to take her from 0.5 to 0.75. And I think basically what it is, it's a difference of like $8,000 there. And then one of our music teachers wants to teach drama class next year. And we have, how many kids? 12 to 13?
12 and the first one and all the 8th graders were.
Yeah, so we're gonna kind of do one at the junior high level and then one at the high school level. So that would probably take her from, she's 65% right now. I would say probably up to 85% somewhere now. So you'd be looking about the same, just a little less increase in salary there. So I guess, don't know what everybody's thoughts are on that. You know, the one with Lois, we kind of need to do just because it involves some like 5th grade English. It's But,
Yeah, I'd be pretty sure both those, if you're that much interest in the drama, I'd talk, and interested in being, yeah.
Does the world really need any more drama right now?
Maybe they can learn how to channel it.
Channel, yeah.
And really use it for positive.
I don't know if you can. Drama's drama.
I mean, she seems really excited about doing that. It is supposed to be a year for a musical. I'm a little skeptical as to what all the music stuff is gonna look like. I told you when you called this morning, I said I was having a meeting with a couple of the music teachers, and it was good. Basically, one of the things they just asked about was if we would consider maybe taking the musical, which is typically in the fall, and maybe moving that to the spring instead, so we have a little more time to. And I think that, you know, we kind of looked and we found some dates, and I think that's gonna work out okay. But there's still a lot that we're gonna have to figure out as far as how just a regular everyday chorus class or band class is gonna look, you know, based on all this stuff, because there just really hasn't been a lot of information for how, you know, what your risks are with some of that stuff, so. But, you know, I'd like to move forward with doing that stuff if you guys are okay with it.
Sounds good. Fine with me.
So I'll just have an amended contract for the two of them.
Okay.
You both are good with that one?
You got 4 other votes, you're good.
All right, then I guess it looks like do we have any other business? No? Then executive session. Looks like for
Yeah, we got a personnel.
SBCL 125 too. Jerry's not here, but we appreciate it.
You might be.
He said he was. He said
Oh, he is there? Okay, well then I go ahead, Sean.
I don't think
Do we
that's
even-
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Jerry, second by Corey, for an executive session at 7:52.
See you guys.
Hey, Shane.
You want to stuff taken?
Oh, Shane.
I have most of it here, yeah.
Here's the-
Oh, okay.
That's the revenue, expenditures, and then that's.